Okay, it's 10 after, and I'm not sure if Joe and Concha are going to be able to make it. So we'll go ahead and start, ladies, in case anything came up, and then you all can watch the video in your own time. And again, this program is very much self-directed. So I'm relying on you all to institute, I don't want the program to cause stress in any way, but see if you can implement these practices on your own into your daily life. And then we'll catch up next week for our final session where I'll just do an assessment and get your feedback in terms of any recommendations and how you did with the program, any benefits you saw, any improvements we can make, and that sort of thing. But thank you all again for your participation. So this week, we are focusing on meditation and mudras. So we're actually going to be integrating some chanting into our meditation, as well as the nature component, the ecotherapy component of the program into our meditation and our mudras. So we're combining a lot into this one session. So hopefully you all will let me know if you have any questions or comments, or if you need any clarity on anything. So there's been a lot of research in terms of the benefits of meditation along with mental health. And I'll just do a little quick review. So they have found that in particular, mindfulness meditation is especially effective for managing stress and counteracting depression. And again, these are tools to put in your toolbox for self-care. And also it's really important when we do meditation to practice self-compassion. It's really easy to get frustrated. Meditation is about quieting the thoughts, recognizing that, we're made up of multiple dimensions and that our thoughts don't necessarily always represent who we are as a person. So some days we may have, repetitive ruminating thoughts about something that's negative, and that's not who you are. And just recognizing that they're just thoughts or they're just emotions and letting them go. A lot of people I've worked with say, oh, I can't meditate. Oh, I can't meditate. It's something that is very subtle. We're sort of tapping in just with the mudras, which we'll go over shortly. We're tapping into our subtle body systems. So it's not going to be, it's like acupuncture. If you all have ever had acupuncture done, it's not going to be a black, sort of black and white, huge difference that you see before and after. It's going to be more of that gray area, more of that subtle effects there'll be subtle effects that you notice over time. So it's just really important, again, the sadhana, the practice, that you're doing the practice, and then with time, you'll start to see results. Now, this program is originally designed to be 8 weeks. We've had to condense it down to 6 weeks, just due to trying to get the program done within my semester time frame. So typically you'll need 8 weeks in order to see results. So we're sort of rushing the results, but hopefully you all are integrating these practices into your daily routine and are starting to see some of the positive results that come from it. Excuse me. So when we are anxious or depressed, our body releases cortisol, or when we're stressed, it's called the stress hormone, and it contributes to inflammation. And so with COVID, people who have had COVID, post-COVID, what they're starting to see, what the medical scientific research is starting to see, is that there's a cytokine storm, they call it, which is a sort associated with, COVID, as it gets exacerbating issues with COVID. And so the cytokine storm is causing broad inflammation throughout the body. So meditation has been shown to have a counter effect on inflammation in the body. And so that's the intention of including it in the program. So what we're going to do today, there's going to be a few different types of meditation that we're going to work on. So there'll be one, which is the take home meditation, which is mindful yogic gardening, it's called, and it actually is a thing that they do in India. And it's just about recognizing life in all beings and within nature and plants. And so they actually meditate. These are yogis that actually meditate on seeds or plants or within the garden while they're working. And so it's about being conscious and aware of what we're thinking during that time that we're gardening. And I'm an avid gardener, and I know that you all ladies personally, and I believe that you all take enjoyment as well from being in nature. So what we're going to do this week is take some time in the garden. So whether that's 1 day, 2 days, if you can do every day or 3 days, whatever you can work into your schedule, but just go out into the garden. You know, if you have one, if you don't have one, you can go into a friend's garden or just go out into nature and maybe grab a few little seedlings or plants you want to bring home to start your own garden. Or even if you're eating fruit, which is really good for you, keeping the seeds from the fruit and just planting them, you know, in little cups on the windowsill. That's gardening as well, container gardening. That's how I started out living in urban areas, was just container gardening on my terrace. And it slowly has progressed. But what I really want you all to be cognizant of, or to be aware of, is your thoughts when you're gardening. So go out into the garden and just take a minute, take a few breaths, and just bring yourself into the moment. So you can do this in a few different ways. So we can do that by noticing the sounds around us in our environment. Maybe you hear birds singing, or you hear the wind blowing through the trees, or you hear traffic or people talking, whatever it is in your environment, just start to notice it. And then just sort of quiet the internal chatter. And then maybe you might notice internally different sounds, the sound of your breath, or maybe people who are even more aware can notice and sense the sound of their heartbeat. But just really bringing our attention into the moment, letting go of thoughts of what we need to do for the day, or regrets of what we didn't do the day before, whatever it is, just really letting go and coming back to the moment and being with the plants or the seeds, whatever we're doing at that time in the garden, and just coming into the moment. So that's the first thing that we can't really do together. I'm unfortunately not at my house with my garden, but hopefully you all are able to do that in your daily practice, or at least a few times within the week. And let me know how you get on, and let me know how it's different from the way you may normally work in the garden, just having that extra awareness. Secondly, you all did the time in the sun last week, which was excellent, and we're going to continue that. So we want to try to overlap all of these weeks and continue. So continue with your physical asana practice, continue with your pranayama. You don't have to do all of them, but you can pick and choose what works for you. And I'll ask you about, you know, what particular exercises or practices work best for you, and keep integrating those in. So today we're going to go over 2 different mudras, and one mudra we're going to integrate with one type of meditation, and the second mudra with the second type of meditation. So what we're going to do now is we're going to come into an upright seated position. I tend to like to sit in easy pose with my legs crossed, but if you're more comfortable sitting on your heels, you can put a pillow in between your heels and your buttocks and sit upright like this. The most important thing is that your spine is upright and elongated. So I'm going to just, and you can also, when you sit in the easy cross-legged pose, you can sit upright on top of the pillow or blanket, and it just makes it a little bit easier with the hips elevated to elongate the spine. So this week we're going to practice Vayu Mudra. Now mudras, I'm sure you all have seen this in Buddhism and Hinduism. These are spiritual practices, and they mean seal. They have different hand gestures. There's tons of different ones if you're interested in looking into it, but this is tapping into our subtle body energy systems. So we're actually, what they're doing when they're doing these different gestures is they're channeling the prana of the energy. So this mudra is known as Vayu Mudra, and it has to do again with Ayurveda, which is the sister science of yoga. We're all understood to be made up of the elements. Everything is made up of the elements. So air, ether, earth, fire, and water. So this is the air mudra. And because we're dealing with COVID and issues with, with wanting to increase the oxygen levels in our blood and increase our respiratory health, I decided to use this mudra. So what we're going to do is you just bring your forefinger to the base of your thumb. You kind of curl your thumb around. The other fingers you're going to have straight out. And we're just going to bring them to an upright position on our knees. Sorry. Okay. And now what we're going to do is we're going to do some chanting and then move into a brief meditation. So for our chanting, we're going to be chanting Om. I'm sure many of you have heard of Om before. And I hate to choose it because it is quite mainstream, but it's actually quite a significant and sacred chant. So Om in Hinduism is considered the first sound of the universe. So it sort of represents, God in a way. They've done studies on chanting Om, and there are a lot of benefits. So it helps to boost our respiratory system, and it's also very calming. So it helps to decrease that inflammation and enhance our overall immunity. And they found that it strengthens, because we talked about this when we did our pranayama or breathing exercises, because you're extending the exhale, the sound helps you to extend your exhale naturally. So because you're extending the exhale, you're also strengthening the muscles in your core and your diaphragm. And so again, extending the exhale is really important for that autonomic nervous system response. So getting our body into that rest and digest state, that more relaxed, peaceful state. So we'll start now with a bit of practice. So we'll just come to an upright position, put our hands in the Vayu Mudra, palms upright on our knees, and we'll just do a few Om chants. I'll start off with about 5 Om chants, and then I'll give you some space to chant on your own for another 5 chants in your own space without me chanting. And then we'll just sit for a few minutes and just start to notice the effects of the practice. Maybe you feel some vibration. Chanting is also especially beneficial with dealing with mental health and depression, anxiety, because they find that it actually stimulates the vagus nerve. And so in modern scientific research, they find that when the vagus nerve is stimulated, that it helps to counteract depression. So we'll just come to an upright position. You can lower the gaze or close your eyes. Take a deep inhale. And on the exhale, Om. 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 Now do 5 on your own. You can always do it silently if you prefer. And then when you're finished, just take a minute or two and just observe the effects of the practice. Focusing on the breath, letting go of the thoughts that arise. And then we'll slowly bring the eyes open. And so that's the first one that we want to practice, preferably on a daily basis. It doesn't take long. You just do it for a few minutes along with your pranayama practice. The second one that we're I'm sorry, so the first is the yogic gardening. The second is the Om chanting with the Vayu Mudra. And the last practice that we're going to do this week is this Prithvi Mudra, which is the Earth Mudra. So this is actually the ring finger, and you're just bringing it to the base of the thumb, letting the thumb rest on it, and leaving the other fingers straight. And you can bring it to your knees and have it rest on your knees. Now this mudra connects us to the earth element. So what I would like you all to do this week is to do Prithvi Mudra, the earth mudra, in the forest. So this is actually modeled after the Japanese, you may have heard of it, forest bathing, it's called. And they've done studies, and they found that it can be incredibly beneficial for many aspects of the body, including your mood and well-being, and as well as physiological effects of being in the forest, increasing oxygen levels in the blood, decreasing blood pressure, decreasing stress. And so this one we want to integrate with nature. So going out into the forest, I'm sure you all can go on a hike. You don't have to do this one every day in case you don't have access to the forest every day. But again, at least 1 or 2, 3 times a week if possible, going into the forest, sitting down, doing the Prithvi, the earth mudra, so the third ring finger, bringing it to your rest on either your lap or on your knees. And then again, just slowly closing the eyes and taking a few minutes. I would suggest at least 20 minutes in the forest. You don't have to meditate the whole time. But if you can just sit for a few minutes and do this basic mudra and meditation, and again, you're just bringing your attention to the moment, to the present moment. Okay, so we're just closing our eyes and just starting to notice these sounds around us. Maybe notice the sounds in our surroundings, or in a forest, or maybe the sound of the leaves blowing in the wind, or the birds chirping. If you're practicing at this moment, you notice sounds in your neighborhood, people, cars. Now we're going to slowly bring the attention inwards. Take your inner gaze, direct it downwards through the body. You start to notice the breath. Notice the air entering the nostrils and maybe slightly cool. And as you exhale, maybe slightly warm. Just creating this space for yourself in the moment. You don't need to worry about anything. Creating a comfortable space, cushions between the past and the present. It's all we have. And then maybe noticing a slight pause between the inhalation and exhalation. And just rest in that pause without controlling the breath, just noticing. Letting go. Anything we have no control over. Relaxing the muscles of the face and the forehead. Letting the shoulders release. And bringing a quiet smile to the face. Smiling inwards. And directing some self-love and care to oneself. Feeling the connection with the earth. Feeling ourselves supported by the earth. And slowly bring the eyes open. Now, when you do this meditation in the forest, you can add some visual elements to it if it's helpful. So what I like to do is to imagine roots growing down into the earth and sort of, as we give to the earth, as we perpetuate life through planting seeds and conserving the earth, you can also take some energy from the earth as well, up through the roots that you have down into the earth, and sort of reciprocating that energy in a sort of cyclical, mutually beneficial relationship with the earth. And it's interesting because modern science is finally realizing and catching up with what indigenous communities and people have sort of intuitively known for a long time. And an area of interest for me is looking at our microbiome, so our digestion, and modern science is finding that a lot of our immunity is actually within our digestive system, and ways that we can help facilitate that stronger immunity is through the garden. And so that's part of the reason I included that. So they found that soil actually has a microbiome as well. And by putting our hands in the soil and just inhaling, the dirt and the smells of the plants and that sort of thing, and just kind of making that connection with the earth, with Mother Earth, it actually, there's actually a mutually beneficial relationship between our microbiome and the soil's microbiome, and they actually help each other. So it's really interesting to learn more about that connection between ourselves and nature, and how we see there's a separation, but there actually is much less of a separation than we realize. So ladies, I hope that you found this session helpful. I know that there's not as much asana or physical practice, but what we're really trying to do is just emphasize other components of yoga. And hopefully by the end of the program, you'll have a strong tool belt of practices that you can continue to practice and see the multitude of benefits that you can gain from them. Thank you again for your participation. It's greatly appreciated. And I will go ahead and send out this link, and let me know if you have any questions, and please do take notes, and your feedback is really appreciated. And please do try to practice these if you can. So the first is the mindful yogic gardening. So just practicing that meditative component as you work in the garden a few times a week. The second is the Vayu Mudra with the Om chanting. And I would say maybe chant, say 7 to 10 times if possible. And then you can follow that by your meditation. So with the Earth Mudra and in the forest. So adding that component of the forest bathing and just really maximizing that clean air that you're breathing in, what the trees are breathing out, and intuitively connecting with our broader environment. Apologies for the noise. Thank you, ladies, so much. And I look forward to seeing you next week for our final session. Take care.